We have with us Professor Zoya Hasan today. She is a professor with the Center for Political Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, and a former dean of the School of Social Sciences. She's on the editorial board of several international journals in political science, including the International Political Science Review, and has had a very long and fruitful association with Oxford University Press, about 15 years now, and a dozen books authored and co-authored. Her latest book, Congress After Indira, was published last year, and we are here today to talk about that book and about Professor Zoya Hasan as well. So, Professor Hasan, it would be we can't really overemphasize on the fact that the Indian National Congress has been the most important political group or party and also movement at some point in time to play a part in the nation building process and both before independence and after independence. So tell us a little bit about your book, the most salient parts of your book, which you would want to talk about, especially since you've picked up the time post Indira. So what are the most salient themes that you've discussed in your book?
Well, to start with, let me first say that I'm delighted with my association with the Oxford University Press. It's been a wonderful association over the last 15 years, and I've enjoyed publishing with the Oxford University Press, which has published at least 3 or 4 of my own authored books, several edited books, and it's been a splendid association, and I have to say the OUP and the OUP publishing team has always provided excellent support, and I would say that especially for this book, Congress After Indira. I think the OUP from the very beginning has taken a great deal of interest. So it's very wonderful to be a part of this event. Now about the book, your question as to what are the salient.
Especially because we are talking about the Congress after Indira. So one would really want to know about the continuities that Congress still carries from Indira's time to the Congress of today, and the main arguments that you build up in the book vis-a-vis the research that is done on the Congress party.
Let me say 2 things at the outset. One, that this book is about the Congress, but Congress is a peg for understanding Indian politics. So this is very much a book about Indian politics, about political processes, and especially about political changes that have taken place in the past 2 decades.
Sure.
Now, the book Congress After Indira, I gave this title largely because the book actually starts with the assassination of Indira Gandhi. And in a way, the assassination of Indira Gandhi really marks the end of an era, marks the end of an epoch in Indian politics and the beginning of a new epoch. So there are some continuities. There is obviously this major continuity in that the Nehru-Gandhi family still dominates the Congress, and just only the other day, her grandson has been elevated to the vice presidentship of the Congress. So that's one big continuity. But at the same time, I think even when you come to the Nehru-Gandhi family, there are discontinuities, because Indira Gandhi was in many ways a very different kind of leader. She still remains one of the most popular,
one of the most charismatic leaders,
popular leaders. But obviously there were problems with her, with her politics, and especially the way in which she transformed the Congress. And she transformed the Congress into a highly centralized organization, one which was very personality dominated, and so on. So and also the Congress after now, another thing that happened during her domination of the Congress, and when she was the Prime Minister and the President of the Congress, is that in many ways I think the whole culture of the Congress changed. The whole internal politics of the Congress changed. Until 1971, for example, the Congress party per se was a fairly democratic organization. It was quite pluralist. It was factional, but pluralist, and there was a diversity of opinion. There were diversity of leadership. The central leadership was always important, but state leaders were very, very important. In fact, it was the state leaders of the Congress who really provided, as it were, the base for the Congress. Now, all this changed from 1971, 72, I would say. Especially the emergency was, of course, a landmark. And that was, in a certain sense, if you like, the culmination of this process of centralization, concentration of power, and so on. Now, that has, if you look at the Congress after Indira Gandhi, Rajiv Gandhi, her son, when he became Prime Minister, in a very dramatic and rather remarkable speech to celebrate the 100 years, the centenary of the Congress in Bombay, gave a very powerful critique of the Congress and suggested that he would really be changing, and in a certain sense even changing some of the policies of his mother. But at the end of the day, he didn't really change very much, and in that sense, there were some continuities, but in many respects, he also changed Indira Gandhi's policies. Now, you see, the Congress after Indira is a very different Congress. Most importantly, of course, 2 or 3 things have happened. One, the economic paradigm changed.
Yes.
And I think the change of the economic paradigm and economic reforms from 1991 has actually completely changed the framework. Now, Congress traditionally was associated with the state and with state intervention and using the state as an instrument of change, of economic policy, of welfare, and so on. Now, that very Congress, in fact, has changed the relationship between the state and the market, and the focus is much more on the market. Now, in many ways, this happened
it's
because
also a different party that I see now, in the sense you're talking about the 70s when there was a move towards centralization of the Congress party and the way and its politics also. But then within a decade, we've entered the era of coalition politics. And,
yes, I was going to come to that.
And Congress actually becomes one of the major players and dominates the coalition era as well.
I would say, if you were to ask me what are the 3 highlights, 2 or 3 highlights of the book, I think one very important highlight of the book is the whole Ayodhya issue. Because in a way, that was the beginning, the way in which the Congress mishandled it, starting with Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi. And in a way, the Congress did not do, and after Rajiv Gandhi, Prime Minister Narasimha Rao just did not do enough. And I think my book actually shows that they did not do enough to prevent the demolition of the Babri Masjid in Ayodhya. Now, that in a sense was the beginning of the undoing of the Congress. So one issue is the way in which the Congress has tried to relate to religious politics. It's tried to play both sides, which is to say it has tried to play the secular card, but equally it does not want to lose out on religious politics because it thinks it appeals to people and because it wants to appeal to the majority. One very striking thing about the Congress is that while it is secular, but it's very mindful of not wanting to lose out on the majority vote. And in a way, as I said, that's one of the issues in this book. The second is what I've already mentioned, and that is the economic liberalization which was introduced by the Congress. And relatedly, the third thing which the book demonstrates, and I suppose which makes it in a way interesting, is that while Congress introduced economic liberalization, but it soon realized that economic liberalization had created a lot of despair and deprivation, and it was losing out on the support of the poor. So so from 2002, very interestingly, and this has not been noted as much as it needs to be noted, and I've highlighted this in the book, that there was a very significant shift in Congress policy, which is to say there's liberalization, but there was also an attempt to neutralize that with a focus on social welfare. So growth plus welfare. So that's the second major highlight. And the third and which is actually the most significant, is what you've just mentioned, and which is, again from 2002, a very major change, acceptance of coalitions. And here I think Mrs. Sonia Gandhi, the president of the Congress, played a very, very critical part in bringing her party to accept coalition, accept coalitions, and she forged very strategic alliances, which actually made the Congress or the United Progressive Alliance winnable. And then finally, I think the fourth highlight of the book, if you will, is that while there's a lot of scholarship on the Congress, and especially the Congress in the Nehru era. There's a great deal of scholarship. Then there's, of course, also a great deal of scholarship about the decline of the Congress in the 1970s, especially the Indira Gandhi period, and what is called the deinstitutionalization brought about by Indira Gandhi. Now, there isn't that much. There is, so far, very little work that has been done on the revival of the Congress, the comeback of the Congress post 2004. So in a way, this book is really focused, even though there are a few chapters on the period before 2004, there are about three chapters on that period, but principally the book is really focused on the last, let's say the United Progressive Alliance one, and the way in which and what the Congress was able to do to make itself to revive.
Quite a large canvas, I would say, in fact, and so when exactly do you conceptualize this book, and how long this journey has been working on this book? And tell us something about the experience. You must have had to wade through large amounts of archival material, and considering that we're talking about history which is so contemporary, which is so recent,
well,
it also brings in the anxieties of judgment and taking a stand, and also facing the various opinions that people have about.
I think these are all very, very interesting and very, very good questions, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to respond adequately to all of them. First, about the material. First about the experience of writing. I think I enjoyed writing this book, largely because this book was a really interesting peg of conversation with people. It became an interesting point of conversation. I've never had as many people ask me about when is the book going to be done, when is it going to be completed, when is it going to be published, because it's on the Congress, and because I think it was dealing with contemporary history, and also because, as I said earlier, there's not that much work on the Congress after 1977, post 1977 Congress. There's and especially post Indira Congress, there is very little literature. Secondly, I think it's an interesting point of conversation because, the Congress has been around for so long. I mean, it's been there forever. So everyone has an opinion on the Congress. So the minute you say that you're writing a book on the Congress, you actually get so much information, so many opinions, hostility, support, all kinds of responses, which you would possibly. So it's a much richer set of responses that you evoke from people, both scholars and let's say ordinary people who have an interest in the Congress, because Congress is something like the furniture in your house, because it's been around for so long, and it is, as you said in your opening statement, it is clearly the most important political party in India. Not only because it's the oldest party, but it has been the most important modern political institution in India. I would say it's one of the most important political parties in the world, because if you look at political parties across the world today, there are not that many parties with such a long history, and that many political parties which have been in power for so long. I mean, you may have many. You can only compare the Congress with, let us say, the Democratic Party or the Republican Party in the United States, or the Labour Party or the Conservative Party in the United Kingdom, and let us say the Socialist Party in France, and a couple of such socialist parties in Germany and so on. So they're not, certainly when we look at the non-West, there's hardly any other party that can be compared with the Congress. The non-West,
we can't on both sides of the power. Even when it was in the opposition, it still retained the importance that is to be accorded to
Quite
a party
right.
which is that size and of that importance.
But at the same time, the Congress today is very different from the Congress of, let us say, when Jawaharlal Nehru was Prime Minister, or the Congress when Indira Gandhi was Prime Minister. I would say even Congress under Rajiv Gandhi. So in many ways it's different. Yeah, I mean, it is really a shadow of its former dominant self, so to speak. Secondly, and very importantly, I think apropos what you're saying, that it's interesting, one, because it's been a party which has had such a long innings in government, but has had now a very long innings in opposition in the states.
Correct.
Not necessarily in the center,
Yes.
but in the states it has had a very long innings in opposition. And again, what is extremely fascinating, and I think a subject for perhaps another
research, yes.
book, is that there are several states, very major states in India, where the Congress has been out of power longer than it had been in power. For example, West Bengal. It's been out of power since 1977 or even
before that,
1974. Actually, almost since 1971,
Yes.
72, I would say,
Yes.
since 1972. It's been out of power in Tamil Nadu for such a long time. Now you could say UP, Uttar Pradesh,
Yes.
which was its bastion. In fact, you couldn't think of Congress without Uttar Pradesh. But clearly, it's been out of power again for nearly 30 years. Bihar, even actually UP perhaps 25, 28 years. Bihar even longer. Now these are four very important states. If you look at their size, their significance in the Indian polity, the Congress has been in opposition for a very long time, and with no indication that it is going to return to power anytime soon in any of these states. So I think it's, in that sense, it's interesting. And also I think Congress is interesting because in so many ways the Congress has shaped Indian politics, but I think but it has also been shaped by societal changes. So it has as much contributed to the shaping of the polity and society as much as it has been shaped by social change.
Which is probably one among the most important qualities of the political party, I would say, the kinesthetics of the party, wherein it allows itself to reinvent.
But one of the major problems with the Congress, apart from, I would say there are two issues, which is that while my book focuses attention on the period from 1984 to 2009, but particularly from 2004 to 2009, which is UPA 1, when Congress turned left of center. And Congress has done well best when it is left of center. But again, under UPA 2, the Congress seems to be veering towards the right of center. And that, I think, spells trouble for the Congress. So I think that's the second point. While you were talking about what is interesting is that, in the past, Congress party was closely associated with social movements, with political movements. After all, it led the freedom struggle, the nationalist movement, which was the largest political movement in world history in terms of. So, yes, after that too, I think it was closely associated with protest politics, with social movements, and with political movements. In recent years, I would say, that's something that the Congress is losing out on. It's not as closely associated with political movements and with political campaigns and with as it was in the past.